Oh my God, the album,
Yeah,
14, hell yeah.
It's just that there's a track on there called Neon Fashion and
I
Glow
know,
Sticks.
don't! That's such a... Oh,
Yeah,
it makes
but-
me want to die!
Charli XCX has often felt bad about her own music, but whenever this has happened, she's had the confidence and conviction to stay on her own path. And her latest album, Brat, channels a lot of what makes her different.
I think my label, I think they were hoping that I was going to be this pop girl that could be like, she wears that, she does that, she does that. And that's no bad thing, like, I love that. But I think I just didn't really know.
It may seem like Brat has come out of nowhere, but actually this album is the result of a creative process that has taken years to develop. This is Charli XCX's first release, 14, that she made when she was 14. It wasn't commercially released, but instead she made it herself, singing and playing nearly every instrument just because she had a dream of making this style of music. She posted it on MySpace in 2008 under the name Charli XCX. That was her MSN username.
I remember when I was starting, it was kind of like the beginning of like the bedroom producer and like SoundCloud, and now that's just something that's like the route that like huge pop stars went down.
Although she no longer likes her music from this time, making the effort to release it and share it became the moment that kickstarted her career.
I would post that stuff online, and then this guy who was running sort of like parties and raves and stuff in London hit me up and wanted me to start coming to play those.
He invited Charli to perform, and despite their illicit nature, her parents were supportive and actually attended her gigs. It also gave her an opportunity to meet other people, other artists, and to build this sense of community to help her on her creative journey.
It was a time when I just started playing raves, because that's how I kind of began. Like I was playing these like underground raves, and then I got kind of introduced to French electro, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I want to try and make music like that. But I couldn't because I didn't know how to work a computer.
Soon after, in 2010, she signed to Asylum Records. But for Charli XCX, getting this record deal meant something different. I think we have this image of musicians getting signed, and that releasing their debut album is an opportunity for them to finally release all this music that's been inside of them. Famously, musicians have years to write their first album, and second album syndrome is where they can never replicate this initial success.
That's kind of what this album process has been about for me, like finding out who I am as a person and the music that I want to make.
When she was first signed, she was making music she didn't really like and didn't really know how to connect with. She knew what music she loved and what she wanted to create, she just didn't know how and how to make it good. But many artists, especially those working on their own, get paralysed, never releasing music because they don't like how it sounds or they want it to be perfect. But Charli XCX knew she just had to start, and she would figure things out as she went along.
And then I kind of just didn't understand how to grow things. Like, I was really doing everything for the first time, so I was learning as I went, but I also didn't really know that I was learning. I was just kind of there, like figuring it out and also figuring out who I am. I'm talking so much. Do the next one, sorry.
It was the early 2010s, and Charli XCX was a newly signed artist. But the success she found from this time wasn't so much from her own original releases, but instead through meeting, working, and learning from other people.
We just sort of got on this like train together. So we kind of like fueled this like thing between each other.
I Love It was a song she originally wrote to appear on True Romance, her first album with Asylum. However, she wasn't happy with how it sounded, especially in relation to the other songs on the album. It was only when the Swedish pop duo Iconopop took hold of it was it transformed into something different, and it fell into place to become a hugely successful song. Having the courage to let go of something that didn't feel right meant that the song could fall into the right pair of hands and turn into something that did feel right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is kind of weird because it's like, it's I always see it as their song, even though I sing on it and I feature on it. Like, I don't really associate it with me as an artist.
This success with other artists continued, of course, when she was featured on Fancy by Iggy Azalea. But with her own music, she still felt this uncertainty and faced this difficulty with her own creative process. For her second album, she initially had the idea to record it in India, and then later France. Instead, she went to Sweden, isolating herself from a label, and it was meant to be this pop-punk inspired record, recorded spontaneously without any thought.
I wanted it to just be like super quick, like not thought about, like everything really spontaneous. It's like the first thing that comes out of my mouth is like the cut on the record or whatever.
Despite all of this, the album was scrapped and she instead released a quite normal mainstream pop album. But amazingly, she doesn't take these two conflicting ways of making music as a bad thing, instead seeing it as a swinging pendulum between two different styles of music.
So my work needs to have this swing to allow me to, I have to dive and take big swings between the two to keep my narrative of what is it to be a pop star going.
What's so strange is that instead of trying to develop a single voice for her own music, she's instead developed these two extreme versions of herself. And as time has gone by, she's learned to use these two styles as fuel for the other one, and to give her greater conviction to go even deeper with whatever music she's working on. Soon it would become clear what these big swings meant for her music, and how she could have such conviction in what she's doing despite these two opposing trains of thought. How I'm Feeling Now was an album recorded in 2020 during quarantine, created over the course of 6 weeks.
It will be very much what I can do myself.
The album was made entirely at home by Charli, with any help from production happening remotely. Even the artwork was a photo taken by Charli herself, something very reminiscent of the album she made when she was 14. 2022 would see the release of Crash, her first album to reach #1 in the UK. The album was meant to be commercially successful and to distance herself from this previous hyper-pop style. To use the pendulum analogy, this was a big swing towards mainstream pop music. And it was successful, commercially at least. But for Charli, something was missing.
The pendulum of Crash had swung. I was like, fuck this pop shit. Like, you know, as I'm like, don't want to do this. Like,
it's almost as if the success of Crash made her realise that this wasn't what she really wanted to do, giving her even more conviction when it came to her next project.
Then after that whole record, I think I had to go so like the other way.
The result, of course, is Brat, a complete swing back towards the other Charli. In many ways, Brat is a return to square one. It's so original and authentic to the music that she loves to make, just like she was when she was starting out.
And that to me felt like, well, I have to write lyrics that I would say in a sentence, in a text to a friend.
The same is true for the artwork. It's so simple, like we could all make this in 5 minutes in Paint. But actually this took 5 months to create, and they tried and tested 500 different shades of green just to get it perfect. Okay, I think that's probably a little bit too much, but because the record is so simple and authentic, the opportunity is there to do that. So why has something so unique become so commercially successful and artistically rewarding? The popularity of Brat Summer just shows how well people connect to that conviction. And even if the music isn't someone's typical taste, the conviction and what it means to make something in that way somehow has a way of connecting with people. The pop music and the success she's had with that is great, and it may seem strange that she's often distanced herself from that success. But success doesn't carry the same weight when the artist isn't really invested in it. Sometimes it takes actually having done something to make you realise when it's worth putting that conviction into something else.